You're listening to the RyAngle Podcast, starring Ryan Hoger and Ryan Eastwood, and sometimes other people named Ryan. And now, here are some Ryans.
Well, that is actually true and the problem, and something we need to talk about. I like the headphones.
Thanks. I got him for my my 11-year-old, and he loves rainbows, so he was super stoked. There's a Christmas present, and I stole them.
Oh, good. Well, I can see you're not militantly enforcing heteronormative fashion choices.
I mean,
in your house.
There was definitely an amount of thinking about it that went in when I bought them, which I was kind of disgusted and appalled by, and they are explicitly LGBT. Like, the purchase also includes a donation to the Trevor Project, which is an anti-suicide LGBT group. And I saw them at Big Lots, and they were like $10 for these sick rainbow headphones. And I'm like, oh my God, my 11-year-old would love these. But are they too gay to buy my 11-year-old? And I had to stop for a minute, and I'm like, no, they have rainbows on them. My son loves rainbows. He would never give a shit, and he's way far away from caring about any kind of sexual anything. It doesn't matter at all. But I still had that thought, and I'm like, that's dumb. I'm definitely buying them, but I may have to be conflicted about it unnecessarily and irrationally.
you know it's there.
Yeah, I know it's there.
That's funny. Just
It's
some part of kids calling shit gay on the playground in the 5th grade is still in your brain somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And they've got little rainbow hearts on them. They're delightful.
Like, literally the only thing that would make it wrong for 11-year-olds if it was gay, if it was just like, I fucking love cock. I just wish a big fat cock was in my mouth right now. And that's like what It said on the sides.
That would be it, yeah. But no, they're just delightful rainbow headphones, and he wants them at home, which is good. And because he won't be teased for them, which is a sad thing that I'm even worried about that. But, no. There it is.
Rainbows are dope. It's refracted light. Don't you know? It's light separated out into the various. Did you know Isaac Newton inferred the existence of infrared light after he split it with a prism and tried to measure the different colors, temperatures, and found out if you put a thermometer just to the right of the red spectrum that it gets even hotter than if you put it in red. And he was like, there must be electromagnetic waves. He didn't call them electromagnetic waves, but he was like, there must be light that we can't see with human eyes that is thus carrying energy. Yeah, this dude is like 24 and figuring this shit out. Anyways, I'm 37. I think Ryan is too. This is Ryan and Ryan. Welcome to the RyAngle. This is 2022.
2022.
I know. And we're not going to know if it really is going to be 2020, the sequel. It's going to start, well, it's not starting off with the same like chill level that existed in the beginning of 2020. But, well, we were still under the reign of Trump in the beginning of 2020. But it wasn't until like 3 months in that shit really hit the fan. Though don't tell that to the Australians. I think Australia caught on, like all of Australia caught on fire right in the beginning of 2020.
Yeah, I remember that.
God, it was just something new each month. But
yeah, I remember in I think it was about now, or maybe even like December 2019. One of my the guy that I used to paint with, that was I was moving, and I was giving away my paint tools, and he was, and I was giving him a bunch of masks, and he was like, "Are you sure you want to give me these? Like, I think we're probably gonna all want them really soon." And I was like, "No, like there's that virus in China or whatever. I'm not really worried about it." He's like, "No, I think it's gonna be a thing, dude. And I think you're going to want these masks. I mean, I'll take them, but, I think you're going to want these masks." And I was like, no, the CDC is saying only nurses and shit should wear them anyway. So, no, you can have them.
Yep. Yeah, my my mask story was coming home from work on the ship, and I looked up if I had stolen a box of 20 N95s from work and sold them on eBay. At the time, they were going for $220. And, we just had them, of course, as like dust filters. Yeah. I remember I needed one for sanding a table, and there was some Asian woman who was in there, and she just bought up 2 entire carts full of every single dust mask left in Home Depot. And I was just like, this person's hysterical. But I guess what they were doing at the time, I only learned this recently, was they were sending them back home. They were sending them to China.
No supply.
Yeah, because they didn't have the supply. But yeah, we thought we'd do the wacky and or existential perspective on the year-end retrospective, because we're in that reflective mood at the end of 2022 or the end of 2021. There was a lot that happened to talk about personally and world-wise, and I think some crazy shit materializing and coming down the pike that I'm interested to hear your viewpoints on, and what you've been paying attention to in the news and what has been concerning to your mind. So how was your 2021? How was that year? What the fuck happened?
At the moment, I'll go a little bit backwards, because at the moment I'm all consumed with having just purchased a house and move into it. You can see you got a lovely view of my ceiling vent there, because otherwise you're gonna have a lovely view of boxes.
A ceiling vent? That must mean you're a man which has 2 stories to his domicile.
No?
No?
It's
That's a single-story domicile?
It's just ducted in the roof.
I'm used to it being in the floor. Anyway, that's not interesting at all.
No, it's not.
Go on.
I mean, it's a little interesting. I mean, we could talk about my house. We could just do that.
I just want to talk about ducting. Just
Here,
if
let's remove that distraction.
And if I needed to tape some ducts, what sort of tape would I purchase? Let's get back to that one.
We'll come back.
Let's circle back.
We'll find an expert.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of been my, though really that dovetails sort of into the topic as well, since I think one of the major concerns of this year that I've been paying attention to is the ridiculous rise in housing costs, and we did manage to purchase this house. But that is against the backdrop of people not being able to purchase a house. And, yeah.
Here's my rant. I'm going on a fucking rant. Are you ready?
Okay.
Cool. Inflation doesn't matter as long as it's something that the baby boomers own. The stock market's going up. Great. What is the stock market but inflation in the prices of companies? Companies which I need to buy stock in, by the way, if I'm ever to retire, not as a poor person. And, but that's so fantastic. And then, the real estate market's doing great. And if housing prices come down, oh my God, it's just, my Lord, it's this terrible, terrible tragedy. If housing prices were to go down, my God, there would be like the president would have to issue some kind of edict about it. But good night. But yeah, housing prices have been, and just even more so than housing prices for me, housing availability is what bit me in the nuts. Because I could, under normal times, like I moved to Chattanooga just last year, and I could have afforded a lot of the houses that were on the market, but you're competing with people that are just coming with war chests full of cash out of California and New York, who sold their houses just like Flynn's parents came out here, and they just these people wanted $400,000 for this house in Cumming, Georgia, and they just laughed. And that's at least how much their house has gone up in the last 10 years living in California. And I just couldn't fight those people, so I ended up buying a duplex out here, which caught on fire. So that's how my year's going. Mm-hmm. Yep, they're still trying to rebuild it.
Oh, is that the duplex that you bought that you're in there?
No, this is a house.
Oh,
this
no,
is a house
not it.
No, this is a house I'm renting, which the insurance company's paying for.
That's pretty cool.
Which is nice. That's nice. It's free. Like, anytime something bothers me about the house, I'm like, it's a free house. Just shut the fuck up.
Burn it down if you need to.
It's fine. So, yeah, but you were able to purchase a home. This is good. In how far? Well, I know you're like what, 45 minutes from downtown Portland or something?
Yeah, less than that. I was only half an hour away when we were living further out in the sticks, so probably 20 minutes from downtown Portland now.
And how long would it take you to drive up to, like, say, Tacoma?
A few hours.
A few hours up Tacoma?
Yeah, a few hours.
Yeah, because I want to get a place that has, like, sailboat access. That's what I'm thinking of. But I think you're a little too far from Puget Sound for my tastes.
Yeah, not on the Sound. You'd be able to sail on the Columbia, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I want...
Not really the same.
I want to do that sound sailing. Apropos of nothing, quick PSA. Hi, everybody. If you're on Facebook and there's a post that says, can you think of a state that starts with an A? And there are 3 million replies to it. They're just harvesting your information and trying to get engagement on their site. So many fucking people my age too, but mostly baby boomers being like, Alaska. I'm like, yes, I know everyone can name a state with an A in it. Good for you. You're 62. Sorry.
Yeah, my Facebook popped up actually with your comment on just on people commenting how many squares an image full of squares had, saying exactly that. I was like, hey.
Yeah. I see one every time I log into Facebook now. I had to log into Facebook to message you the link to the meeting. And what the shit was the last one I saw? Anyways, it was something that's... Oh, no, it was one of those order of operations problems, which people just never seem to get over, you know? What is 3 plus 2, open parentheses, times 3 times 8, or whatever the hell, right? And, like, anyone who can remember basic order of operations from elementary school wants to feel smart, so they answer. And then they're like, haha, thanks for the engagement, asshole. Anyway,
the comment
Facebook
sections are already great though. Which state starts with an A? Antarctica.
Yeah, just retarded things. So yeah, so you got that. That's your new thing going on in the new year at the new house. Yeah.
Go ahead.
What else is good? Yeah, tell me more about that.
Talking about that home price thing though too, like so one of the things, so, you know, as purchasing the home, I'm starting to get this perspective of a homeowner. And one of the things that immediately hit me was, okay, at this point, my mortgage is $2,300 a month. And, well, that's including insurance and whatnot. So I think it's $1,800 for the actual mortgage. And so I'm spending $1,100 or I think $1,000 or $1,100 a month on interest. And then $800 or so on principal, and that just hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, oh, wow, I'm not spending $2,300 that's just vanishing every month. $900 of that is coming back to me, like, at least eventually. Like, it is in fact half my rent that's now that's investment money basically. And
totally.
It hits me why people get so bumped up about home prices, even when they drop just a little bit. It's like, oh yeah, I'm losing this money that I've put into it. But again, on the kind of prevailing theme of world topics, you know, everybody who rents is watching all that money disappear every month. So maybe stop whining so much.
Yeah, no, I know. This is what I'm saying. What's good for the baby boomers is good for everybody, and what's not good for them is a fucking disaster. Like, yeah, they're the absolutely most, like, least empathetic, most narcissistic generation. Sorry, I've been in this anti-baby boomer thing, which I know maybe it's blasé by now ever since OK Boomer, but once you see it, once you just see, like, and it's reflected in all of the economic policy of, like, everything of the United States. It's all to just accumulate wealth within that generation. So they come in, they buy a bunch of single family homes, and then they go, okay, well, you're not allowed to build anything other than single family homes here. So you can only build single family homes. So no people who can only afford to live in a duplex or triplex or a mid-rise apartment complex can live here, and then, you know, this is going to be zoned, and they just make it they can artificially constrict the supply of housing so that their asset that they've been putting money into becomes valuable. Now, their asset that they've been putting money into, that their little retirement nest egg, is what the millennials need and Gen Z people need to live, to keep, like, the rain off of their backs, and to not freeze to death in winter. So and this is, like, everything that they've driven the costs up on, like, education, is these are all just the basic things we need to goddamn live. And they're like, we have all of them. Do you want some? They're expensive now. Okay, we're going to Florida.
Yeah. Where all these things are still cheap.
Yeah. We're out here. Yeah. But you're able to get a house, and this is like, if you own a house, I don't know, am I just hanging out with particularly poor people? Like, are my friends just particularly poor? But I feel like we're in the minority of people that actually own real estate who are in their mid-30s.
Well, I mean, we made the really conscious decision to forego any of our, like, creative and personal dreams and buckle down to the job that would get us both go to school for, and then buckle down to the job that would get us the most money. Like, we both consciously made that decision basically to dump every other priority for me except family, but those things tie hand in hand and go, how much money can I make? And it turns out that we can make the equivalent of about $60,000 a year in 1990 if we do that.
Right. That's the thing. You start looking at it, and people are like, oh, yeah, no, neat, you make good money. And then you get here, and then you're like, wait a second. And then you look it up. The average truck driver in like 1980, and no, not 1980, but it was the early 70s, is before they busted up the truck driver unions. They made more money than we do.
Like inflation adjusted, or
inflation adjusted.
Okay, yeah.
They made more money. And it's just like, this was the basic middle class income. My dad's parents, for God's sake, his mother was an English teacher and his father had no college education. He just was some insurance agent. They sent their kids to boarding school. Have you ever thought about sending your kids to boarding school,
Absolutely
Ryan?
not.
Has that occurred to you?
No, it has not.
As a thing you could do? Yeah, of course not. Anyway,
I mean,
I don't want this to just be bitching about the I feel like I'm just bitching about our economic woes as somebody who's not doing nearly as poorly as a lot of other people are. But just to say like how unusual it is to be making even what was just considered a basic middle class lifestyle not that long ago.
And then the actual costs of things just skyrocket. Like, just made one more thing before we move on from there. This was 6 years ago in California, for childcare for one child, 2 days a week for half the day. We were looking at $1,200 a month. 2 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
Half the day. One child.
Okay.
$1,200 a month.
Yeah. Yeah, just not worth one party going to work, obviously.
No, it's not at all. Like, I think we did the math on it. My wife was cleaning houses at the time, and I think we were originally like, okay, she'll work during the week, right? And we'll get childcare. We ended up making 3 times as much by her only working weekends because of childcare.
Yeah. To be fair, my parents made that same calculation. I remember them talking about that. So I don't think that's entirely new. I guess what changed with the labor shortage is that so many of the kids were out of school that a lot of women just dropped out of work because of that exact same calculation. Which brings me to a trend of last year that I would like to talk about, which is called "Nobody Wants to Work Anymore," which is a phrase I keep hearing all over the goddamn place. Nobody wants to work anymore. Because, and I'll tell you where this attitude came from. So everybody knows there's a labor shortage, right? And I had an experience yesterday where I was driving up from Atlanta and I wanted some food. So I went to a Popeyes. And if you haven't had it, I will fight someone, or I want to know if there's anything better. The Popeyes chicken sandwich with the Cajun fries is the best fast food drive-through thing that you can buy in America. It's incredible. It's like the bun is buttery, like it's just like a brioche thing with perfectly flaky. Oh, it's just and there's spices on this crust that's around your French fries. It's divine. But I had to wait quite a long time to get my Popeyes chicken sandwich because all of these places, all these drive-through. And every fucking baby boomer, I guarantee you, has been sitting there trying to get their greasy fast food, and it took twice as long as it usually does, and their entitled asses went, nobody wants to work anymore. Why isn't anybody bringing me my fries sooner? I swear that's where most of this attitude has come from. Have you encountered this in the wild?
My personal experiences have actually been pretty good. Like, I was at Papa Murphy's a couple nights ago, and they were obviously slammed. Like, they had 4 people on hold. There was a constant drive-through line picking up, and Fortunately, it was just me and one other guy in the store. I'd already called ahead to pick up, and this guy had ordered at the counter, and they're like, yep, it's going to be a while because there's only 3 of us, and we've got 4 people on hold right now.
Wait, have you encountered this knee-jerk, I keep hearing this phrase over and over again, people just don't want to work anymore, and the meme is that, and I think it's a prevailing view, and it's certainly among Republicans, and it might be the prevailing view among most of America, that we gave a bunch of money to poor people, and this is what you get. You give them checks, and they just sit at home and want to do nothing because they're all so lazy, and that's why we have this labor shortage. Like, I hear people explicitly saying this with zero curiosity about what's going on. By the way, there's a labor shortage every time that there's a pandemic. Do you want to know why? Because capital doesn't disappear, but people to work the capital do. Where did they disappear to? They died. They died in the pandemic.
Look at that. They're staying home to avoid the pandemic, or they're close to death. They're hospitalized.
Right.
I haven't run into it so much. I've run into it more actually with working class attacking each other. With like one today I saw, someone was talking about crypto and how it's a huge. I'm not going to get into talking about crypto. Short strokes, I don't think crypto in itself is a scam, but I do think that most coins at this point are a scam. But somebody was like, hey, crypto's a big scam and it's turned into a Ponzi scheme just being controlled by the rich and powerful, like all the other shit it was supposed to like supplant. Isn't that cool? And somebody chimed in with that, like, oh, I took my stimulus money and put it into crypto and now I make 5 times as much. What you want now? And other guy on the thread is like, yeah, I didn't do that and I can't work because I'm disabled. And guy's like, oh, you gotta just grab life by the balls and shit.
Oh, wow.
Put your money into crypto. And it's like, bruh.
Yeah, just one of those people that tripped into a financial accident and then attributes it to their genius. Well, that happens with bubbles. Any bubble. People are like, I am brilliant. I am an investor. And then some of them have the audacity to write books.
Yeah, because you bought Dogecoin when Elon Musk said to.
Yeah. There's a great book by Matt Taibbi called Griftopia. And the long and short of it is that the elites in America are running a giant grift whereby they squeeze the middle class out like a sponge and take all of their wealth. And the way that they do it is they blow up bubbles and then they get rich on the way up, and when the bubbles burst, we all have to pay for it, and that cycle just repeats itself. And we're in another one of those. I can't believe I've lived through like 3, and I'm 37 years old.
Oh, it's amazing. But circling back to what we were talking about, how nobody wants to work anymore, is that it is also a truth that if you have a lot of capital and no labor, you have nothing. You have a bunch of imaginary numbers because money is, as I think we've discussed in previous episodes, a more or less consensual hallucination.
Yeah.
Whereas labor is a real thing.
You mentioned crypto, and I've just got to, not to get too much into it, crypto should be its own thing, but I did see a headline. Apparently Matt Damon sold his soul, and there's a new ad out where he advertises, he shills for crypto.com.
Oh, great.
And the tagline is "Fortune favors the bold," in which they compare investing in crypto to going to space or climbing Mount Everest, as if it's this brave, masculine thing that you can do is just invest in crypto. And then there's the Staples Center in LA is getting renamed. Oh, that's a nice little pit stain right there.
That's delightful.
That's cute. The Staples Center in LA is getting renamed Crypto.com Arena, and like if I needed. That just seems like satire. Like, I'm playing a Grand Theft Auto game and driving past Crypto.com Arena. There's no way that that's real. But it's real, and I've never seen any better monument to a bubble than that. I mean, we're all going to look back and laugh at Crypto.com Arena, aren't we? Just like we laughed at the Pets.com Super Bowl commercial back in the .com bubble.
AOL Time Warner. It's the monolith. That AOL Time Warner, it's going to dominate everything.
What do you mean? Are they in on that shit?
I don't think they even exist anymore.
Oh, okay.
AOL Time Warner.
Warner.
Remember AOL Time Warner? That was going to be the media monolith. That was going to take over everything. I don't. Then AOL was still AOL.
Bugs Bunny must live somewhere. Oh, that's right. They split up. AOL and the rest of them split up. And did you know AOL still does a decent dial-up business.
No, I didn't know that. That's astonishing.
They have tens of thousands of dial-up subscribers still around the world.
That speaks a lot to the terrible in America or around the world.
I don't know. It's named America Online. I just again, I'm just
say,
okay.
If it's America, that speaks a lot to the ridiculous aging of our internet infrastructure.
Hold on, Jamie, pull this up. AOL dial-up subscribers. Because I remember reading it.
Nice shirt, by the way.
Oh yeah, we'll get to that later. This is from the middle of 2021. AOL, 1.5 million people still pay for service.
Wow.
But
I
now
guess,
they get
a couple bucks a month. That's pretty reasonable revenue.
Yeah, Apollo. There's still 1.5 million, but instead of dial-up access, these subscribers get technical support and identity theft software. I guess they just upsold a bunch of old people. I'll have to dig deep into this. I guess they just upsold a bunch of old people on some nonsense.
Some serious nonsense. All I really want to hear is
that is your impression of a dial-up modem. Children, computers used to have to hiss at each other over the phone to exchange information.
Oh, goodness.
Isn't it plausible that you could have some alien race that communicated that way? Like we would just tune... Like, why couldn't you just do that audibly and then decipher that exact same thing as,
You could.
We're gonna go to another planet and there's gonna be little things that look like fucking penguins with antennae, like that just sound like modems when they open their mouths. And they're going to be the most intelligent creatures in the galaxy because they have this incredibly high bit rate of information that they exchange between each other.
Yeah.
So, looking forward to 2022. What I had hoped, what's neat about the so-called labor shortage, which is just nobody's entitled to your labor. Nobody has to do anything they don't fucking want to do. This is what I was going into a restaurant with my sister, and there was a 20-minute wait, and there was one guy that went, and she told us there's only 2 servers. You're going to have to wait 20 minutes. Okay. And there's one guy that looks around and goes, I see open tables over there. I don't know why they just can't seat us. As if he can't imagine any other reason. That's the only reason a restaurant wouldn't seat people, is because the lack of physical space to put a human ass. Right? And another guy did that. He walked in, he asked how long the wait was, decided it wasn't worth it, and he walks out and he goes, man, nobody wants to work anymore, and got back in his Audi. And I'm just like, nobody's entitled to your labor, motherfucker. Or you're not entitled to anybody else's labor, rather, especially at a certain price. A shortage of labor is just a shortage of labor at a certain price. Labor obeys the same laws of economics as everything else. So that means you're not willing to pay me enough. So this made me optimistic about going forward in 2022. There's a couple Starbucks that have unionized. That there's actually a union movement happening again in the United States, which is really cool to see. And people are wages are rising, but the man always gets his, not rising fast enough to keep up with inflation. It would seem. So real wages still don't seem to be going up because the man just doesn't want to give you that last fucking dollar. And corporate profits, by the way, 60% of inflation right now is just due to increased corporate profits because corporations are going, and you can just look at the amount of money if there was no increase in just the price, just arbitrary prices, corporations would not be making more money in an inflation scenario. Their costs would go up. They would pass those costs on to you. And you can do that. People have done that math and been like, nope, 60% of that is just them going, people are expecting higher prices, so let's just charge them higher prices.
And now we're more. Add 3%.
And now we're making money.
And now we're making more money.
Yep, it's 60%. And they can do that because almost everything in the United States is a monopoly or a duopoly. If you go into the grocery store, I think we've talked about this. You go into the grocery store, and all those products come from 2 companies, all of them, and they all look so distinct. You got your organic products and this and that, and no, it's all like Kraft and Heinz basically. Or I think those 2 are one company, Kraft Heinz. Now that I think about it,
Kellogg's.
So I don't know. I was hoping the work. How do you think the working man's going to have a better time of it going forward, or?
I think it's a really important step. I think I'm happy to say, or proud to say, that I feel like I'm a little bit ahead of the game on this one. When I spent my year in Australia, I spent 8 months of it decided not to use money at all, and so got kind of a sneak preview of what it was like to not have any money, and just to survive. And I gotta say, my big takeaway was, as long as you're reasonably healthy, able-bodied, adventurous, and have no dependence, it's really, 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 really easy to live without working. In fact, it's much easier to live without working than it is to live with working, because you don't have to work. Dumpster diving solved 100% of my nutrition needs if I needed it to. Most of the time I didn't even need to do that, because if you're basically social and willing to help people around the house a little bit, a bunch of other single people who do happen to be working are usually fully happy to have a house guest who helps out, is reasonably decent to be around, and just basically isn't an asshole. And then what I was doing was working music festivals, going festival to festival. So then when I was at festivals, I had food and I had shelter and I had, whatever else I wanted to put in my body. The amount...
Dick. Sorry, that was just a homophobic comment. Like, why did I need to say that?
Whatever I wanted to put in my body. And really, it was the easiest year I've probably ever lived in my life. It was great. I had a ball. And I had no reason to sell my labor for anything, because all my needs were met. Fitting your basic needs, again, as long as you're fit, able-bodied, have no dependence, any of those things, and I'm sure other factors that I'm not considering, change the game tremendously. Black would probably make a big difference, to be honest.
Oh, sure. Right. No. So I went with...
a whole lot of things that would change that equation. But... the level of wiggle room is pretty good.
Yeah, so I was telling you, I went with my sister to go dumpster diving for the first time, and I found out. So I go home for Christmas to Boise, and they start pointing out, like, oh, that thing came out of a dumpster. That thing came out of a dumpster. This Christmas tree came out of a dumpster, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And then I learned that my two sisters go dumpster diving as their new thing, and they're like gifts they're giving away to people at Christmas, and you never know. It's just hundreds of dollars worth of merchandise they're talking about. Yeah. And food. They said, "Oh, that." I said, "Have I been eating dumpster food?" And they're like, "No, none of this." And they're like, "Actually, that's dumpster sour cream on the potatoes." And I went, because dumpster sour cream, was that really something you want to hear?
I mean, sour cream's fermented. It's already a fermented food. It's actually probably one of the best ones to dumpster.
But this was a bit of, right? That's true. This was a bit of a revelation, because so one of my sisters is poor and the other one is not. And the other one, her husband has a middle class income, and and what people would say is pretty decent. Like, if you're the number amount, you'd be like, oh, they must be doing pretty well. But they have children who have medical needs that are not covered under their insurance. One of them, like, she has an eye that's a bit offset from the other eye, and she has to go through this intense training to be able to ever get them to work together and see in 3D. And another kid has some ADD stuff, like me, and just normal human things to be wrong with your body that you would want to be able to care for your children for. And they ain't swimming in it at all. And, like, here's this person who who should be doing well and did everything that America asked of them and is trying to take care of their family. And, like, his wife, this is my brother-in-law, his wife goes dumpster diving with my other sister to help supplement taking care of the family. And so that's amazing. That's a picture of American life for you. And then the other thing that's amazing is just how much stuff does get thrown in a dumpster that's perfectly good. Tons of it, I found, had been deliberately destroyed. Clothes coming out of clothes. A lot of this was clothing. Clothes that were perfectly good. Stuff coming out of outdoor stores, like sleeping bags and things that were perfectly good that had obviously just been sliced with a box cutter before they get put in a dumpster.
It's one reason a lot of hippies hate REI, despite the fact that, REI, in a lot of ways, ethical company, well regarded. They slash all their shit. They won't donate any of it. So they're largely hated by dumpster diving people who are adjacent to that.
Well, yeah, I found that the bigger box stores, they're all locked down. It's all self-contained, compactors and stuff. And one of the things they're trying to avoid is people dumping their own trash into their dumpsters, which is legitimate.
They say that they just don't want people taking stuff.
Yeah, which is mind-boggling. So I got up to that was just revelatory. We're gonna do a little bit of it in Chattanooga and see how it goes. We haven't done any yet. Maybe we'll do it tonight.
That would be a good way to bring in the new year.
Perfectly good things go in the dumpster all the time. And if you want to know more about that, look up that story that came out of the UK about the amount of perfectly good still in its package retail goods that Amazon just throws into a landfill every single day. Yeah. And one of the big reasons for it is to just keep the price of retail goods up. That's it.
Yes.
Just what REI doesn't want. REI just does not want to donate a brand new Patagonia thing because that dilutes the. Maybe there, and my suspicion is there is some other bullshit legal structure in the United States that might make them liable if people got a hold of these things. I don't know, but probably. In any case, needs to be fixed for the love of God. And this is not the same in other European countries. In a lot of European countries, it is illegal to throw away perfectly good food or perfectly good goods into a dumpster, which is what they want to go after Amazon for.
And I think we can circle this right back around there to where you can have a family with dependents who are working, spending all their time and their resources supporting the existing structure, and yet need to dumpster dive for basic needs. And that speaks right into that. Yes, you're correct. Nobody wants to work anymore.
Yeah.
When you're being paid a fair wage for your labor, right now I'm working and I'm super happy with it because I get paid what I consider a fair wage for my labor and have ample free time. When I got back from Australia, I was looking around at all my friends. At the time I was raving a lot, and I was looking around at all my friends who were working restaurant jobs and retail jobs and making $6-7 an hour to survive on, and then using their scraps of free time to do the things they loved. And I asked a lot of them why are you doing that? Just quit your job. There's no reason not to. If you're able-bodied and you live in a climate that's conducive or can get to a climate that's conducive, quit your job. Stop. And, then you see that and you get into what is a legitimate transient issue going on as well. And then you have a certain number of crust punks who are part of that transient issue who make a big mess. And that can be an issue too. But you need to have a society that supports people.
If there was a criticism of that sort of lifestyle, I think it would be that, you're saying, oh well, you can just tune in and drop out,
basically,
and you can drop out and just live off of dumpster diving and the rest of it, which is true. But you're living off of the leftovers of a system that you're refusing to participate in. But if that system did not exist, well, and I could take this argument down further. Some would say, well, if that system didn't exist, that's putting the capitalism that's putting the things in the dumpsters. So you just decided to fill another slot down on the ecosystem. You're the crab at the bottom of the sea eating the marine snow, going, well, all's fish doing chasing other fish up there? Who cares, right? But if they weren't doing that, the marine snow would not fall down to you. You have just filled another niche.
If the system didn't exist, we would be having a different conversation.
But then again, if the system didn't exist, we could all be living in teepees on the shore, eating, shellfish and praying to, natural gods and living like the Native Americans and working about, 20 hours a week and making acorn paste and living off of that.
One of the things that infuriates me, again, from that experience is, with the demonizing of people camping and, you end up with people on the freeway medians and on the sidewalks. I haven't been to California much in a while, but it's pretty bad down there. But up here, you got the freeway medians on the sidewalks. You'll have tents set up, which honestly is kind of amazing that people are willing to live on the side, willing or forced.
Yeah,
literally on the sidewalks in Portland. Which is
it's
crazy.
Probably the same in Oz, but I spent 2 months living out of a backpack in New Zealand, and I spent a month in Tasmania. And I got the sense there that if I didn't have any money, you could live. If I had, granted, I started with decent gear and a backpack, but if you did that, you could wash your clothes in a sink somewhere or in a stream, and you could camp out, and like this would just be a niche this would just be a life you could live, and it wouldn't be that weird, and it wouldn't be that like squalid as it is in the United States. There is just like no patch of land upon which you can place your human body that is not demanding whether or not you are providing economic value to that patch of land in this moment.
Yeah. Which is bizarre because we have so much land.
Sure. Have you been out to East? I think the whole place is called East. Is the whole place called East Jesus? Or one part of it's called East Jesus. It's out by the Salton Sea. It's a bunch of people living on BLM land. It's a whole...
No, I haven't seen that.
Collective. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Allison's got some friends out there if you ever want to like just stay with some crust punk desert artist types in a totally off the grid, off society community that is living the full-time Burning Man dream. Let me know. We'll hook you up with some people.
All right. Yeah, it's been a while since I've been on that thing.
Yeah. Not that you would be unfamiliar with any of this, but yeah.
But yeah, I'm sure it's evolved since I was in it.
So that's a trend that's going on, and at the risk of only staying on that, I did have another trend that I wanted to talk about. So we're... is there anything else you want to say on that subject before I just hijack it?
Quit your job.
Quit, drop out, man. Quit your job. No, I think it's an interesting to highlight that as a form of like protest, as a form of. I think one of the ways that the man keeps you down is to keep you terrified about what's going to happen to you if you're not meeting like basic economic needs. And you really feel that in cities, which is one of the reasons I don't like them. Like Los Angeles constantly has you by the balls, and it's like, money, give me more money. Are you rich yet? Are you rich yet? Are you rich yet? Like everywhere you go. I'm just like, no, not yet. Fuck, get off my back. Jesus Christ. But yeah, if you don't have like that is a mode of the average person getting some power back and saying, you know what, I don't have. In fact, if you've never been backpacking, I would say to somebody who's never experienced this, if you've never just packed some shit in the woods and gone and lived by a stream for a few days, just go do that. I did it very young and still do it, and it's transformational to know that you don't need that whole structure of civilization around you to survive. That you're actually like a fairly self-sufficient animal that could figure it out.
Yeah, and on kind of last word on that before we move on to your next topic, there is really anyone who may be listening to my words who may be like on the fence on whether you're able to survive and have a like good and happy and fulfilling life without contributing to capitalism, and you're being just like exploited by your employer at minimum wage jobs, and you feel like you could probably make it happen outside of that. You can do it. Go.
Yeah, what I struggle with being invested in the system is if I wanted to go tell my employer to go pound sand and I suddenly had Zippo income and started not being able to pay the bills, there's just there are things in the house that I would like to continue. I like sleeping in this bed. I would like to continue having access to these things. But my little form of rebellion is like with the duplex once I move into it, that sucker, if you're not going to be a straight up transient, you can keep your expenses pretty low. I think that's the way to not play into it, because I can live in that duplex, rent out one side at a like not even what it's worth market rate, and pay for the other side, and all my expenses, everything totaled up for the month, would be well paid for with $2,000 a month. And I could scrape together $2,000 a month if I got decent at the ukulele and just played music over on the bridge here. Yeah. So I love having that option. Like, at least just own a trailer. Just make your like have some way that if you had to go down to like bare bones, that you would still be okay. And I find that to be really peacemaking in my mind. Like, my minimum nut that I need to survive is very, very little. And then you can indulge in nice stuff as much as you want. It's just like have some kind of, that's my security blanket. If I had to go on Social Security disability, I could live off of that and I live in a nice place where it would be nice enough to go kayaking or fishing or hiking or whatever, and it would actually be a pretty nice life. And I think about quitting my job quite often. Wouldn't be that bad. So the anniversary. So it's January 4th, and in 2 days, do you know what 2 days marks from now?
Well, it's be the number after 5.
The
before 7, so I think that would be January 6th.
The 6th, the anniversary of a bunch of Trump supporters storming into the Capitol. When I was watching this, I was doing my physical for work, and I was going up and down on this box. You got to go up and down on this box for like 3 minutes, and I was just doing this like Stairmaster routine, basically with my jaw on the floor, watching people invade the Capitol.
Yeah, I think I was on the boat.
So that was fun. So Donald Trump is about to have a press conference on January 6th. And oh, did you not know this?
No,
okay, so let me get you caught up on this bullshit.
Let's get the Ryan News and World Report.
Yeah, the Ryan News and World Report. Because I am genuine, like, this occupies a lot of my anxiety about the next 2 years, this phenomenon. So Trump is having this press conference, and let me get a few words I pulled up here out of his what do you call it? Press release that they released before the thing.
It's the best insurrection, the biggest insurrection.
Well, he says this. Former President Donald Trump proclaimed Tuesday that the insurrection took place on, this is from the New York Post, which is just quoting his press release. The insurrection took place on November 3rd of last year, and announced he will hold the news conference on January. Why isn't the House Unselect Committee? So this is his insult. You know how he has these childish insults? It's the House Select Committee, and he calls them the Unselect Committee. That's the jab.
Oh, wow. Okay, so he's going full hog. Not a surprise. Not a surprise, really.
Of highly partisan political hacks, rigged presidential, so he's calling it again a rigged presidential election in 2020. So he's saying this violence on January 6th was justified, and it was justified because the election was stolen.
Which, if it were true, by the way, any Trump supporters who may be listening, if there was any evidence that was true, you'd be right.
Sure.
Totally worth it.
I would say even then, the president of the United States shouldn't be the person that is fighting that fight. The president themselves, they should leave it up to lawyers and other people who don't have a dog in the race, so to speak.
Yeah.
But yes, he would be correct. But so this is the part that worries me a lot.
Oh yeah.
And then this also worries me. So accused Republican rhinos, which stands for Republicans in name only, which I think is an ism started by that asshole that died and is burning in hell as we speak, Rush Limbaugh.
Oh,
yeah. So
a long time ago. That one's definitely not new.
Yeah. So in many ways, Republican rhinos of not wanting to pursue the manner, in many ways, a rhino is worse than a radical left Democrat because you don't know where they're coming from and you have no idea how good or bad they really are for the country. The good news is there are fewer and fewer rhinos left as we elect strong patriots who love America. And this has been a thing. He's been counting down, like how many people that voted for impeachment that were Republicans. I think there were 9. That they're getting out of office, and they're succeeding. And they're also, the New York Times did a huge piece on this. They're supplanting Republicans all over the country who believe in Stop the Steal are getting themselves into positions of judicial judges in their local races. So they're setting up this
officers.
Yeah, the Democrats are asleep at the wheel, and the Republicans are the Republicans are taking this very, very seriously, and they are wresting the control of democracy in a very calculated and deliberate way. And what he's saying to these rhinos and the radical left Democrats is the line is loyalty to America is loyalty to the party, and loyalty to the party is loyalty to me. Like nationalism is following me as an individual, and I don't know what we do with this. I mean, I feel like we're all just going da-da-da-da-da about our daily lives, but like we are about to be in a situation where if he runs in 2024, He might legitimately win that election, by the way,
possible.
which would be the only thing that would save our asses. But if he didn't win that, and we have and there's some disagreement over who the legitimate president of the United States is, what does that look like in America in 2022 to 2024? What on earth does that look like? Is this something you concern yourself with or have been terrified by?
I what you're saying about us pretty much la-di-da dying about our days, like that's definitely what I do. It certainly occupies a certain percentage of my daily bandwidth, wondering about the impending civil disturbance and fascist takeover of the levers of government. But there is that question too of what do you do about it? Like, we're not at the point of having to actually actively fight off insurgent attack. If you're going to obey the law and act within the existing process of government, you're not really in a position to stir shit up. The problem is the other side of it is doing that.
Yeah.
It's a defensive position, and a defensive position is extremely weak in this kind of situation. And then the leaders at the national level really are just asleep at the wheel. Like the agree or disagree with their policy decisions, like the Justice Democrats, like, led by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and her Ibram Omar, the few of our, like, they're really the only ones who are talking about how serious this is. Like, I guess Adam Schiff a little bit, but really just those like 5 Justice Democrats are really the only ones that are like, guys, we cannot ignore this. We're gonna have a fascist Republican Party taking over the government, and they're not gonna let go. And you need to act on it now. You can't act on it after it happens. It's too late then.
And what gives me
as a citizen, what the fuck do you do?
I honestly don't know. And then I've asked myself this question in the past, or I asked myself this last January 6th. I go, why did I think I was so special? Because there's almost a coup that happened in the United States, and there are people that think that that's a conspiracy theory, that a coup almost happened. Why were people there on the day that they were certifying votes at the behest of the president of the United States that lost the election, as adjudicated by every court in the land? Okay, this was
with zip ties.
Yeah, and gallows. What was the point of invading that building other than to interrupt the process of electing the duly elected president of the United States? To which people go, like my father would say, oh, well, you're just going to act like there was no hinkiness going on? I'm like, I'm going to act like everything was played out that could possibly play out in the courts, and that there was no evidence that there was enough, really any fraud that I've seen, but even if you're going to claim it on a tiny basis, certainly not enough to sway the election in Joe Biden's favor. So, there's a process for doing this. Like I'm at the point where I have to explain to Republicans what civilization is for. Okay, civilization meaning we solve these things in the courts and then we just obey what the court decides as the correct thing, like we did in Bush v. Gore, by the fucking way.
Yeah.
That exists so we don't kill each other. That's the point of that whole system. And if you're going to be someone like Donald Trump and say that this entire system is illegitimate, and I saw this coming way before January 6th, the inevitable outcome of that is violence. Because Al Gore said this about his decision. He said, well, what did you do after the Supreme Court, or why didn't you challenge the Supreme Court's ruling that wasn't in your favor in Bush v. Gore? And he says, well, because there's no intermediate step between the Supreme Court and violent revolution. He didn't think it was fair, but he wasn't willing to take up arms. And fucking Donald Trump is.
He's willing for somebody else to.
Yeah. Oh, he's willing for his mob, Proud Boys, stand back and stand by, to do it. And I think to these people, to the Republicans that I know, I sound as crazy as they sound to me when they claim they just think, oh my God, CNN has gotten in your head. But I'm like, but evidence. but this is the most.
Evidence. Like, yeah, and like I've looked at the evidence presented, and I'll state again, if there was credible evidence that the election was in fact fraudulent in these counties that are being contested, Donald Trump or not, like, you would be justified.
Sure.
You look at the evidence that's being presented here. Like, I remember, again, so, like, in Georgia, there was this guy who testified in front of the state Senate about how they had hacked the voting computers, and they're in. And I saw this presented as, like, evidence that, look, this election was fraudulent. And I looked at this guy, and I'm like, okay. So I saw this video, and they're like, here's the video of this guy testifying before the Georgia State Senate that, look, we're into the election machines. We're in their front-facing portal. And I'm like, okay. So and that was the end of the video. And I'm like, okay, so what happened here? And I looked at it, and yes, they didn't actually hack into anything. They accessed the front page of the web portal. Like the public-facing front page of the web portal.
Sure.
For the company that makes the machines. The dude didn't even like bring a laptop and do a PowerPoint presentation. He just said, "We hacked it. We're in," and that was the end of the video. I look at this guy, Jovan Hutton Pulitzer, and I don't want to get into too much of a rant about. I mean, I guess we're doing politics right now since it's the soup du jour, but dude's claim to fame was that he made a QR code reader that like plugged into your computer in the 90s.com boom, made like $12 million from angel investments, and then faded away into nothing because who wants a separate dongle you got to plug into your computer to scan QR codes in magazines to get to their websites? Like, legitimately ahead of his time. QR codes are pretty amazing, but at the time it really wasn't that great of an invention. Didn't work that well, and his business failed. And his personal website, jovanhuttonpulitzer.com, if you want to check anything I'm saying, has all these references to him being this genius inventor because he made the QR cat in the 90s. It's still all about him making the QR cat in the 1990s. And he has faked himself a Wikipedia entry, because if you go to Wikipedia, it's wikipedia.jovanhuttonpulitzer.com, comes up with the little Wikipedia logo as the site icon, pretends to be a Wikipedia page talking about his incredible accomplishments. It's a fake. If you have to make a fake Wikipedia page to talk about yourself, you're not a credible source. No, this is the guy that they're like linchpinning this argument on. I'm like, no, there's no evidence. That's not evidence. It's a guy saying things.
They're all like this. It starts with some appeal to authority. Like, this guy's a doctor. This guy's a PhD, and in some cases, like, they are, right? And you can find someone with a PhD to say fucking anything. Anything at all. You can find someone. But so there's some appeal to authority and then some. But my basic, like, my thought was, yeah, I'm open to any evidence of hinkiness, but there's an arena in which this will be played out by the people that have the evidence, and that's called the United States court system. And they're going to put, you best believe, everybody wants to win in that, and they're going to put all the evidence forward. And lo and behold, none of this shit that they're running their mouths about on Fox News ever makes it into a courtroom because they don't want to go to jail, because it's bullshit, right? So anyway, it becomes then, what do we do looking forward in this America? And so my head's been
2022.
You meant 2020, comma 2. What do we do? And why was it that I thought I was so special? So I'm reading this book by Cormac McCarthy right now called Blood Meridian. You ever heard of Blood Meridian?
I haven't heard that one.
It's just an absolutely gory, brutal account of what happened along the Mexican-American border in the 1850s. It's historical fiction, and it's just like the most absolutely raw, violent thing you've ever read in your life, but accurate, but true, of the trail of blood and gore and doom that led to America getting all the way out west. And so in this, now I'm starting to worry, oh my God, I could see a future in which they say, they're already using this language, the rhinos, the radical left Democrats, the wrong people have power. He could get in power and say, look, we can't trust these radical left Democrats to be in charge of anything. Purge them from the rolls, right?
And they consider Joe Biden a radical left Democrat, by the way.
Who considered Joe Biden a radical left Democrat. My God. But I could see him making these sweet... The stance of these people who have this religious conviction on the right is that they don't like democracy because the wrong people get power, and they don't want to be told what to do by the wrong people. So they're willing to use violence to get around democracy. And these things are said by people close to me, family members. Just like, oh, we don't want those types of people voting. We don't want this type of people to get... I'm like, I'm sorry, no. So here I find myself... So America, as depicted in Blood Meridian, and, I feel like black people and Native Americans are looking at me and going, oh, yeah, first time, welcome, because the crazy-eyed, frothing at the mouth rage of the American empire has exacted its will upon gays, blacks, Indians, many other, I just said blacks, people of color around the world. Other nations, you take my point, right? And here I am, the white atheist liberal, and now why am I surprised that this crazy-eyed man who hopped up on his own self-righteousness and bloodlust with froth in his mouth is turning his eye towards me and raising his club? Of course, Of course it was coming for me. Of course it was always coming to this part. If you're not in the right party and the right religion, get ready. Or in the right social class, get ready, because you will feel the wrath of the United States.
I think a lot of the last 6 years has been us. I mean, I'm going to be generous and say us relatively reasonable, intelligent, atheist, more or less accepting white dudes, men and women, and people of all genders and whatever, being like, yeah, people are basically reasonable, right? Like, most of those, like, major racial issues and prejudice stuff, it's like a thing of the past, right? Yeah, obviously there's still problems, but, and then you kind of look over and you're like, the fuck is that guy doing here? Oh, shit, it's like 2 out of 3.
Yup. I mean, that's been the revelation of the last...
That's been the revelation.
Ever since Trump got elected, and recently with the Stop the Steal and people willing to take up arms against the United States because they think the whole system's rigged, and they love this one, cult-like personality. And Donald Trump is, you're like, wow, there are a lot more fucking crazy people around than I thought that there were. Holy shit.
I'd just like to toot a horn there that Ryan Eastwick here has actually taken up arms for the United States, and so I would say has a pretty good pulpit on which to speak about it.
No, but I just get put in that, category when I talk to anybody that I disagree with on this stuff, or that's a Trumper of, I'm just like AOC or anybody else, even though I was, a United States Marine, and like to think, and an educated person on some level, and like to think I know something about which I'm speaking. But all that credibility that they usually give to veterans and shit, it just goes out the window.
As soon as they disagree.
If they find out that, like, if I, for example, say, we got lied into Iraq, and this was all, if I take some lefty stance on the wars, other than they were anything but justified and brilliantly executed up until the moment that Joe Biden pulled the plug, and how dare he?
Yeah. And the 8 years that Obama was doing it. Yeah, those were bungled.
Yeah. So I had another theme that I want of what has been happening and what I think is coming. If you wanted to move on to a different thing, or did you have anything else to say on that topic, or another topic you want to move to?
Pretty much all I can do on that one is stare listlessly into the void. Until things get a little hotter or cool down, I don't really know what to do. Like, right at the point, I think, kind of basing on that too, where they are right now, it's really hard to even think of anything to do about it.
We did leave that on the table. Like, what do you do? And what you might have to do is what a lot of people in the world have to do: live under an unjustly elected dictator that you resent, and move on with your life. That's probably, honestly, the way that it would be going. Which is,
I got kids. I can't join a revolution.
That's where a lot of Americans think they are. Yeah, I hear you. That's where a lot of Americans think they are right now. They think that Joe Biden is not the dutifully elected president of the United States. So for them, this reality has already happened, right? and they're living under this, unjust dictatorship of people that stole the election. Climate change.
Climate change. Okay, so January 6th, Donald Trump's going to do a press conference. That's news. All right, climate change.
Yeah, Donald Trump's going to do a press conference. And the big thing there is he's doubling down, and he's riling up the army and stoking the resentment. And it ain't over, folks. Stay the fuck tuned for that.
Strap in. Okay, climate change.
Speaking of more doom, so did you see Don't Look Up on Netflix? Because I believe this has to happen. You have to mention this movie in this context. So the only criticism that I can give this film, and its satire of the last 2 years, is that it's very heavy-handed, but you almost have to be if you're going to satirize the last 2 years. Like, there's no other way to do it. And the basic premise is there's a comet, and it's coming for Earth, and it's going to kill us all. And these two scientists go to the American president and they say, my God, there's a comet and it's going to kill us all. And the president goes, oh, when are the midterms? And it proceeds to be this just absolutely, totally on the nose criticism of our total inability to deal with, as a species, an existential threat because of our own bullshit. And it's true. There is a comet coming for Earth. It is called climate change. The Colorado River Basin is actually drying up. They're having to ration water to farmers in that part of the world for the first time ever. Literally ever. There are 40 million Americans that live off of that water, and a ton that live off the power generated by the Hoover Dam and whatnot. And it's only going to keep getting worse, so get used to that. So, I don't see... There are all these stories. It seem like every time I open a open the internet... every single week for this last year, man, there was something. Hottest ever, coldest ever, craziest ever, tornado, hurricane moving across the whole United States. Most recently out here, tornadoes and freezes. Is there anybody that's still climate change isn't happening that's arguing that? Or are there people that are just arguing that it's not man-made?
It's natural. Yeah, it's just natural.
Okay.
Or it is, but it would be too expensive to do anything about it.
Yeah.
That's my favorite one.
Really? I haven't heard that one. What's that?
I love that one. Oh, yeah, it's definitely happening. It's definitely human caused, but it's too expensive to change.
The economic aspect of it's so good. So they, in that movie, Don't Look Up, the comet that's coming to Earth, they launch a mission to destroy it and then quickly abort it because they find out that there are lots of precious metals inside the comet.
That sounds about right.
And so an Elon Musk, Steve Jobs type is going to go up and break the comet up and land and get it to crash in tiny pieces into the Earth and then go collect the metals. And there are lots of people that are totally into this because they stand to make a lot of money for it, and all the jobs they talk about all the jobs that the comet is going to bring. And that is exactly, as someone that hauls oil, I don't want to be doing it. I wish it didn't exist. I'll haul soybean oil or purified water or whatever you need me to in a tanker. I don't want to haul oil if it is destroying the planet, which I guess makes me a radical lefty.
You know what we're going to be hauling pretty soon is breathable air.
Yeah. From where are we going to get it?
The air mines.
the air mines.
Deep underground.
No, not deep underground. I'm picturing you attach helium balloons to a belt on yourself and a rope to tether that's 200 meters long, and you have to go up into the air with buckets upside down. You're like, oh, he's up in the air mines right now. You have to come back down.
Sweet air.
Yes.
And you have to wear a mask with surface air to keep you from breathing any of that sweet high altitude air while you're.
Oh yeah.
That would be theft.
That's Jeff Bezos the third's air. That is not your air. He bought the air rights to that long ago.
Oh goodness.
If you worked in a gold mine, could you?
Yeah.
It would be less funny if it weren't. But man, I've been thinking about that. So what do I do if I live in a country that's about to have some sort of soft civil war? And then what do I do if I live on a planet that First of all, are you at all hopeful? Because I've reached the point of total nihilism about
I think
climate change.
I definitely am. I am very hopeful. On the whole, I think that the human race has an astonishing ability for adaptation, and the things that are happening are not being reported on the news. The ways which we are adapting are not being reported on the news. The news largely exists to get that to make that sense of helplessness and need to know more about what's happening so you can obsess about preventing it, because that's how they drive clicks. Being told that there's legitimate incremental changes happening every day that are improving our ability to deal with climate change is not good news. The Army, the fucking whole Department of Defense has been aware of this and reinforcing military bases for decades. Like, all the things that are being done, constantly being done, and will be being done are not in the news. And then when constant crises do start happening, people are going to respond, and they're going to respond with all resources at their disposal, because then it stops being a prediction game and a what should we do about this game and turns into a, oh shit, I got to do something game. These are all like humanity's ability to respond to an actual crisis. Not like we don't have an actual crisis, but you know what I mean, like a crisis in front of you rather than a predicted crisis, and a economic crisis is absolutely astonishing. The no work movement that we were discussing earlier, I think, is a very positive sign for that. People do have the ability to withhold their labor if their lives are being threatened and their livelihoods are being threatened, and force change in an incredibly rapid manner. Going back to what you were saying about politics and how things that have happened before, I just saw this briefly, but there was a consortium of businesses that were going to stage a coup against FDR. That didn't happen. That failed.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, and a lot of the things, Joe Biden, I'm going to make fun of him and say the shithole and whatnot, and I believe that's true. But they are actually moving on climate, and branches of the government are moving on climate, and even Trump knows that if he can't lord over all his fascist wannabes if he's dead.
But is it remotely fast enough? See, if the entire world was
no way to know.
was like, yo, we're going to clean nuclear like today, and that's the way that's how we're moving forward. That's how we're going to produce most of our energy, and we're going to upgrade the electrical infrastructure, and here's how we're going to phase out fossil fuels. But it's like, I worry that all these incremental news stories are just of incremental improvements are just these little feel-good things, making us say, oh, look, Safeway's composting now. Isn't that nice? And I'm just like, it's not enough. It's like the Titanic is sinking, and hey, there's a little 2-year-old there, and he's helping bail out water with his little pail. Isn't that nice? And I'm like, no, it's not enough.
It's not nice.
This thing is sinking. And if you look at the climate change report that came out of the UN this last year, like, there's a lot of global warming that's locked in already, and they're very urgent in saying that a lot needs to be done right now to prevent the worst of it. And the worst of it is very possibly some serious positive feedback loops that have to do with like methane release that actually make the planet uninhabitable to human beings. Like, that could actually happen. It's on the outside of the bell curve, everybody. But if I told you were going to have a 1% chance of dying tomorrow, how well would you sleep tonight? But it's about that. One tiny finger's twitching. 1% of me is anxious. Yeah.
I guess, it's you're not wrong. Like, I can't disagree with all those things being true. I guess the hopeful optimism part of me is like, well, what am I gonna fucking do about it? We're kind of on this. I can stress about it, or I can not.
I'm on the not stress about it side of nihilism. Of just like, okay, the train's going off a cliff. We're not sure where the cliff is, so I guess once you can see the cliff, let me know, and I'll poke my head out the window. But until then. And
the other thing that I see there is you see those responses, and yes, it's true. You also see, but they're all filtered through the news. Everything you see there, unless you're reading the actual COP26 report and are educated enough in the right way to be able to understand it, which, spoiler alert, you're not. You don't know what it said. You only know what the media is saying to you about it. And I'm not trying to downplay the severity of the climate crisis at all. I think it's going to be the crisis of our lifetimes, and we've already hit some good ones. But one of the things that really got me thinking this year with COVID was, oh wow, that's one. Well, you like?
I didn't even talk.
We didn't talk about COVID.
How did we talk about the trends of last year and the coming year? And COVID was not mentioned once, except for in the context of the labor shortage. But yeah,
and only in reference to other things. So one of the things that COVID really got me going with is, okay, the responses have been terrible, and I'm not downplaying COVID at all. But let's look at this. So it's a disease that is not going to affect everybody and has about a 1% death rate. I think we're looking at 10-20% hospitalization rate, which is absolutely 100% cause for concern and reason to keep it locked down and preventing it from spreading. Mm-hmm. But the amount of worldwide response that has happened at the possibility of up to 1% of the population dying from this disease, and the catastrophe that would be of 1% of people dying from this particular cause, and what level of catastrophe is considered a catastrophe. And it turns out it's about 1% potentially of the population dying.
Hey, it's about the minimum.
That's not high.
It's about the minimum to raise our hackles, yeah. But it's amazing it was that much.
And the amount of effect that it has too. Like, it really has been just this enormous effect on every sector of our life. And when we start approaching those numbers, like, it stops being an option whether you're going to respond quickly and with the full force of your capabilities. And also, the full force of our capabilities to respond to the climate crisis has not remotely been plumbed. I don't know, did you ever read Freakonomics?
Yeah, back in the day. I listen to his podcast sometimes.
It's kind of dated. But back in Freakonomics, that was 15 years ago that book came out. Mm-hmm. He was discussing then how someone had a geoengineering idea where sulfur dioxide in the upper atmosphere has been positively shown to reduce the temperature of the Earth worldwide. I think it was Krakatoa dropped the the climate temperature 2 degrees within a day. And they've narrowed that down to being sulfur dioxide in the upper atmosphere. And someone had worked out that with really like $50 billion, fucking nothing in the terms of national budgets, you could get a high altitude pipe generating sulfur dioxide and pump enough sulfur dioxide in the atmosphere to drop us back down by 3 degrees. And I'm not saying that's a good idea or that we should do it, but the level of response that we have at our fingertips that we could do that nobody talks about.
Yeah, how on earth would you ever get political consensus on this? Because you got we just can't. I think people would be justifiably skeptical, in the way that we're skeptical of somebody saying, no, don't worry, Jurassic Park 2 will be just fine.
Just gonna be
that anytime science says, no, wait, we got this, there won't be any horrifying, unexpected knock-on effects. Don't you worry.
Don't you worry. Oh, and I'm not saying that at all. It'll be horrifying. I think it'll definitely be a dystopian nightmare. But we will be alive for it, and I also have no way of predicting what is going to happen in the next half hour, much less the next 20 years. So as far as optimism, pessimism, I guess I'm optimistic because I am kind of an optimistic person, and it's easier for me to live my life that way. As far as what I think is going to happen, I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
I don't have a clue.
There is just the admitting of there's so many wild cards all over the place. Donald Trump could die. There could be another pandemic, but worse, starting tomorrow.
Omicron could straight sweep the globe.
Well, Omicron, if you ask me to put money on what's going to happen in 2022, it really does look like now. So Omicron is reproducing in the upper instead of the lower bronchial tubes, which makes it
really?
far. Yeah, so it makes it far more contagious because it's like up here ready to go when you breathe. Fucking everyone I know has Omicron. Everybody around me has Omicron. There is no way during this holiday season that I did not suck some Omicron into my respiratory system. It must have happened.
Tissues.
In fact, I felt a little off one day in Boise, but I had a negative test. And I'm like, probably the Omicrons, because it was the first time I'd been out amongst humans, many of which were hacking their lungs out in public. Stay home. Oh my God, stay home. If you have a wet cough, stay home. Oh my God.
There's also the factor too of, with it could happen to me. We could witness the collapse of this civilization. Go ahead.
Let me just finish where that's going. So it seems to be with Omicron, it's not killing as many people because it's not getting deep into your lungs and causing pneumonia, but everybody's getting it all at the same time. And so it's like, whether or not you wanted to get vaccinated, here it comes, motherfuckers. You're about to get vaccinated. As in you're about to get exposed to a lesser form of the virus. Which, y'all ready for this? Y'all ready for that? You're ready to like rip your eyes out of your... If Omicron leads to mass herd immunity, everyone is going to say, look, idiots, we never needed a vaccine in the first place. That's what they're going to say. Even though the viral mutation is totally random chance. One of the biggest reasons that Omicron isn't as deadly or overwhelming in hospitals is that lots of people have already been exposed to COVID and or are vaccinated. And that's why they're not. But you're gonna hear that all over the place, that we never needed a vaccine, Omicron vaccinated us, and that this was all bullshit to begin with.
We're already hearing that.
So anyway,
you know what's gonna happen right after that? All the ER doctors and nurses are gonna quit.
Oh my God. Yeah, I should share some stories with that. But Allison's cousin here is the head ER nurse at the local hospital. Really interesting insight into what's going on. Because, people that think COVID is a hoax, by the way, go talk to anyone that works in a hospital. Go talk to those people and ask them if they think COVID is a hoax. Because they'll look at the death numbers and they'll go, well, that's just because of depression and suicide that's coming from the lockdowns. And I'm like, ask them how many people are dying of just depression and suicide in the hospital and how many people are in there for severe acute respiratory illnesses. I saw last year... shipping containers outside of the hospital in Los Angeles that they had set up to hold the extra bodies. Anyway, I digress. But what was your point that I...
2021 recap.
recap. What was your point that I just derailed you off of?
We could witness the collapse of that anything that... There was another quote that encapsulates that pretty well. Anything that has happened, that can happen to a human, could happen to me.
Anything that has happened to a human could happen to me.
Anything that can happen to people could happen to me. So we could witness the collapse of an empire. We could be crippled by a respiratory virus. We could have 5 extra children. Anything that, regardless of what your life is right now, anything that can happen to a person could be waiting for you.
Yep. Sam Harris put it so well when he said 9/11 was the first time that he realized he was living in history. And I thought that was such a good way to put it. Because we did really have the idea before 2001 that somehow we were in this post-history moment. It's like, nope, you're here. All those books where all those dramatic things happened to all those people and so many of them meant tragic ends, you're in one of those books right now. It's just being written. Welcome, motherfucker. This is my theme of like, why did I think I was special to... I was going to live in a country that was perfectly stable and democracy worked perfectly well and nobody was insane and got the reins of power and I would never be the subject of any kind of oppression. Why did I think that was going to happen?
Well, then on that other side too, what's to kind of roll it back to our previous discussions about like midlife crisis and the personal response. How much of this is truly historical and how much of it is just perspective? FDR, there was an attempt to fucking deliver a coup to FDR. World War II happened. The Vietnam War happened. Nixon existed. All these things fucking happened to
Nixon
people.
existed, everybody.
Nixon existed. All this shit has happened. Like, none of this is new. It's just that we have fucking Donald Trump. Like, that's still the most surreal part of it all.
Some of that's
Donald
new,
Trump?
dude.
Seriously?
A president of the United States insisting that the election was illegitimate and mounting an attack on the Capitol of the United States has never happened. That's new. Like, the Civil War happened. And I'd like to not repeat it. That thing was a motherfucker, by all accounts.
That's one of my favorite conversations of 2020. I think it was maybe late 2019. Is one guy was like, "This country has never been more divided," and I was like, "There was a civil war," and guy was like, "Yeah, that's true."
You're like, there was a line called the Mason-Dixon line. People wore different colored uniforms and stabbed each other to death. Have you heard of it?
Father fought brother.
I thought about that, man. Like, if this country goes fucking sideways, I got a lot of family that's on the other side of that equation. That's on the pro-Trump army equation.
And I think that's a lot of the equation behind the what do you do now is actually there's a whole list of options of what I could do as I see my country slowly sliding into preferring dictators and like local control and local dictators and basically just sliding toward a fascist state. I have a whole list of options that I could explore. I don't want any of them. And I would rather hold off on drastic action until the last possible moment to when someone is actually actively threatening myself or my family, which unfortunately is how we end up devolving into fascist controlled states, is because the people who don't want violence, and the people who do want violence. And it's why you're in such a bad. I feel like that's really why it's such a difficult state. Is you're like, no, I really, 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 really don't want a civil war. That sounds like a bad time, like for everybody. I don't want to stage a revolution. I don't want to do any of these things. Sound like it would suck. It sounds like a really bad time. It sounds like everyone would be hungry and cold and miserable and fearing for their lives and terrified all the time. Sounds like a lot of PTSD, and I would really rather go play Animal Crossing because it's a great game.
Yeah. No, I know people. I've got a libertarian anarcho-capitalist that I work with, and he's just like, yeah, man, just tear it all down. He's a smart guy, and he's like, this anything would be better than this system. Just tear it all down. And I'm like, are you fucking for real? You have daughters. Do you want bands of marauders coming through to rape them and eat their fingers? Because that's what you're gonna get.
Like, anything would be better than this system. No, there's a few people who could probably say that, who are really at the sharp end of the American stick. We're not. I'm on the very soft and cushy end of the American stick.
And so is this dude, like white dude with a decent middle class job, is just like, tear it all down, motherfucker. And I'm like, most revolutions don't go very well. The vast majority of them go very poorly for everybody involved. The American Revolution was a bit of a miracle in that respect, and even then, it didn't go well for most people for a very long time, you know.
There's some excellent scholarship on how the American Revolution was, in fact, engineered by the landed elites of the American colonies in order to just decrease their tax burden. Continuing the theme. I'm not educated enough on the subject to have really, like, an educated opinion.
Yeah, but it wouldn't fucking surprise me, given the current state of affairs, if that was the entire point of the thing. You know, there's some great, you know, philosophy underpinning the American Revolution. In any case, I'm just like, that's not the world you want to live in. And that's why I find people like him that voted for Donald Trump, the people that just said, screw it, man, screw the elites, let's tear it down. And I'm like, you people are dangerous as fuck. Really dangerous. It is no small thing to just be a true anarchist. And I'm like, you do not want to live in that universe. That is a fucking nightmare. That is Cormac McCarthy's The Road. Like, and y'all are just playing with that, just inviting, like, you're just giving the barbarians what they want, just a little bit, inviting them into the gate, just a little bit. And
Nihilists, dude.
So, what should I worry about? One of my New Year's resolutions of sorts, I don't know if you could call it a resolution, but commitment, is I'm trying to just read more newspapers. So in the morning, I sit down and I bought a subscription. It's very cheap, surprisingly. $4 a month gets you the New York Times. Isn't that nice? $4 a month. Give the New York Times a cup of coffee every month, and you get to read it. So I sit down with the New York Times, and it's, lo and behold, it's what's going on in the world. It's COVID, and it's fucking the Donald Trump, and everything that's going on with him. My girlfriend's just like, oh, stop paying attention to that stuff. It's rotting your brain, and I thought that it was my bad sources or maybe like Reddit sources of information that was rotting my brain. But like sometimes it's just like the state of the world is actually agitating. Like a person in pre-war Nazi Germany who was like, I don't think this Hitler guy's up to something good, man. And someone's just like, oh, honey, you're being too upset. Like that's how I feel. Like there's a natural inclination to go, what the fuck is going on around here and what can I do to prepare for it? But I think you're right. You can, when history is happening around you, you can decide that you're going to take center stage. Like, I'm going to be one of the people that's in on the fight on either side of this thing, or you can just lay the fuck low and try to get through it. And I think you and I are both in the lay the fuck low and try to get through it sort of thing.
And circumstance will dictate a lot of it. It really depends a lot on what happens right around you. You know, if I got bands of brown shirts going around my neighborhood kicking in windows, my reaction to it, if I'm going to be perfectly honest, will depend a lot on whether it's my window. I'm going to be honest.
I don't think it would come to that, but I think it would come to, like, are you going to participate in certain forms of civil disobedience? Yeah. Are you going to join protests that are how? I mean, God, Portland would light itself on fucking fire if Donald Trump, like, credibly stole the election next time around.
There could be some break. I mean, we already have the Western States Pact. They formed it during COVID.
Oh, really? What is that?
California, Washington, and Oregon. And I think maybe Nevada might have joined it as well. It's a straight up a Western States Pact for mutual aid when they realized the federal government wasn't going to do shit.
Interesting.
They couldn't trust the feds at all. And the Western states formed an alliance.
Right, because that's the thing with this man. He only wants to give aid. This happened with Hawaii. The only people that deserve federal aid are people that are his allies. That's why he's a mobster. Yeah, you can't imagine for a second if the Biden administration had not given federal aid to Kentucky when they had the tornadoes, because Kentucky's a red state. Can you fucking imagine? They would never do that. Like,
yeah, and I mean, and Rand Paul is still arguing that other states shouldn't get aid. Yeah. Very disappointed in Rand. Rand, your dad was cool. You're a dick.
Yeah, your dad was cool. Sort of. But you're the worst. You're a boot-looking fucking snake like the rest of them. So, how about we go out on a personal note? So that was one of my resolutions for the new year. I'm trying to support journalism, so I got a subscription to New York Times. I'm donating $10 a month to The Intercept, and I read The Intercept because The Intercept is the only fucking paper news outlet on Earth or in America right now that really their whole thing is truth to power and breaking really, really big news stories. Like they busted Obama's, like, the criteria for assassinations under their drone program wide open. So they're not partisan. They just dig into powerful people doing shitty things in the United States, and that's the kind of thing I'd like to see. So that's one thing I'm doing in the new year. Have you thought about anything different you're doing in the new year, or do you even think in those terms?
I have a house.
I have resolved to have a house and pay this mortgage.
This is going to be pretty much my new year, is moving into this house, and then I got to take all the pipes and replace them. Like, I got plenty of resolution.
What's wrong with your pipes?
They're all polybutylene. Apparently, it was this next generation whatever in the 90s that was going to replace all the plumbing and be the best thing since sliced bread. Turns out this house was built in 1994. It turns out the average lifespan of this piping is 26 years.
Yeah, it's like when you buy a used car and it has 110,000 miles on it, and you find out that at 115 the timing belt needs to be changed, and you're like, I get it. I know why they sold this to me.
Yeah, so we knew it when we bought it, so we're just getting someone to come out and do an estimate on it. But so we got to do that. I'm not even done painting. I used to be a house painter, so I'm having some fun painting, but that's going to be a while longer. So that's pretty much my New Year's resolution, is to live in this house. That's about it.
Live in this house. That will take up all of my that will take up all of my energy.
Keep doing these podcasts. That's honestly enough on my plate that we're actually producing something here. I'd like to do something with make a quick. Maybe we can talk about this next time. It's like kind of my after 37 years of living, I've finally come up with a theme for the things that I'm creating, like a sort of ethos. It's an ethos. At least it's an ethos, dude. That basically humanity.
The second reference of the podcast.
At least it's an ethos. That humanity actually isn't a series of individuals, but rather a colony organism similar to like coral or fungus, and that our houses and built environments are as much a part of that living environment as the fleshy bits inside are. And exploring that through visual art has been what I've been doing this last year. I'd like to continue exploring that through discussion and pondering and perhaps interpretive dance, partially tongue-in-cheek, but not entirely. And kind of that's actually a large part of how I view these things happening too, is I'm like, these are the spasms of a giant superorganism figuring itself out.
Yeah, for sure. That is, that's a low. I'm right on that wavelength with you, because this morning I was going on a walk and listening to a podcast about ants. Stuff you should know. Good podcast. Talk about ants. Yeah. Ants are weird. Ants are very interesting.
And a colony organism behaves in rationally unpredictable manners, and we don't know why things are happening. And you can point to logical reasons why Donald James fucking Trump.
You're a colony organism.
Your mom's a colony organism.
What the fuck was I listening to recently that was talking about neurons and the fact that neurons basically compete in an energy economy? And so there's an energy economy that takes place in the brain, and they're fighting to remain relevant, meaning repeatedly used. And that's how they get a goodie. Yeah, and that's how your neurology organizes itself.
That's fascinating. That explains,
isn't it?
And how even really you are trillions of individual living organisms boiling over each other in this bizarre dance for reproduction, continued life, and we call that an individual.
There's a documentary, not to get too stoner, but here we go.
See, I think that's a thing too. Is that a lot of deep thoughts are just written off as stoner thoughts? And that's
I know.
How I'm
super guilty of it too. Yeah, I mean, that pejorative should really be saved for things that are surface level observations that are not profound, or that, in my experience, you, especially when you're of a certain age, you should have thought about that already. Like if someone our age says, what if my color blue isn't like your color blue, man? That's not cute. You should have had that thought at 16. Something
we could actually do a whole episode on that one. I've always thought that was an interesting one.
So Death by Design is the name of this documentary, and I think it's free on YouTube, and it's on Amazon. Death by Design. It's all about programmed cell death. It is a fascinating look at how you are just a collection of organisms, individual organisms, you were told, and how each of these organisms is told to die at very specific strategic points. And for people who say that socialism doesn't work, you are socialism. You're just socialism walking around on two legs. Okay? All right. So, what do people who say socialism doesn't work say when they step on an ant colony or get stung by a hive of wasps? Do they deny the effectiveness of the attack that's being mounted against them?
Goddamn socialists.
In fact, I was thinking about ants today, and I was trying to think of any animal that doesn't behave in that way, that's truly like a loner, but they're usually just your apex predators, like America is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say your big cats.
Yeah. So.
A small cat.
Oh, a small kitties. You got cats. So okay. So here's what I got for Christmas Thank you for asking.
Hold on. Let's rewind a little bit. Hey,
Yeah.
Ryan, what'd you get for Christmas?
Oh, thank you for asking. Here's what I got for Christmas from my lovely girlfriend. I got a juicer and a bird feeder because I'm 37. And those are the kinds of things that I get excited about for Christmas. God, I'm just feeling so lame. I'm looking at the... Did you know if you put food for animals outside a window, those types of animals just show up and you can observe them? Which is why I leave human carcasses on my front porch to watch for bears.
Perfect.
Because the bears are happy with the carcass, and then they don't feel the need to come inside my house and eat me. It also really, really works when you're camping. So what I like to do before I go camping is I find and hunt a transient or two. And if you get a transient that's too big or you get too many transients, you just get yourself a chest freezer. They're very efficient because the lid only opens up at the top. And you put the rest of the transient parts in there. And then before you go to sleep at night in your camping spot, if you're in a place where there's bears, you don't even need to put your sandwiches up in a branch or anything. You just lay pieces of transient around the perimeter of your campsite, and they'll just eat that. They'll get full, and they'll walk away.
So that's how I like to do that. The part of the podcast that's going to be taken out of context.
Even in context.
There's no context.
Taken out of irony, I think would be the thing.
There was a good one I saw today that I think we're gonna explore. That apparently, if you put a little fiberglass platform, something that rattles a lot, outside your house, and put unshelled peanuts and stuff, you'll attract crows. And if you establish a trade relationship with them, they will collect items from people and areas around your house, even going so far as to rob passers-by and bring you their goodies.
I've seen this where crows will crows can be trained to bring people money, loose change, paper money,
and sometimes they'll rob people for it.
Oh wow! And then and also pick up cigarette butts was a cool one I saw. If
Yeah,
they put it in a cigarette butt.
Take that one.
They get I want a relationship, just any relationship really, with a crow. Be that platonic or not. Once
Don't tell Allison.
some kind of relationship with a crow would be fucking wicked.
Yeah. Apparently, unshelled nuts.
So I got a juicer and a bird feeder, and I got her a bidet and a nice robe. So apparently that's my life now. But hey, you know what? Guess what else I just bought on a whim this last month? A gaming laptop and an Oculus that I'm not even using because I'm bored with it. Hey, nieces and nephews, that fucking thing that your parents saved up to get you that is totally unattainable that brought you joy when you got it on Christmas. Yeah, I just bought that casually on my way home one day. Suck it. Make money. I'm in the metaverse and you're fucking not.
And it's boring.
And it bores me.
Play it.
Dispense with the metaverse. No, the metaverse is the devil. That's a whole other conversation. All right, man. That's about it for me for 2022, 2021. My vocal cords have reached their limits.
So, last year 2021, and this year 2022.
Pimping the merch.
Yeah, it's a nice shirt. I designed that shirt and told somebody else to make it in exchange for money. You exchanged money, and they made it and sent it to you.
They did. Humans are weird.
Humans are weird.
What's your
.net?
Is it humansareweird.net?
Yes, it is humansareweird.net.
Humansareweird.net. You can buy weird stuff made by this strange collection of organisms. Many of which in that collection have died during the course of this conversation. Quite a number.
This strange collection of organisms.
Yes. Let's have a moment of silence for all the cells in Ryan Hoger's body that died since the podcast started. Peace out, my homies.
Indeed. Otherwise, they'd become tumorous.
Oh
my God, baby boomer metaphor.
Yeah, get out of my house before you become tumors. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for joining us again on another episode of the RyAngle Podcast. We'll check in with another wacky topic for our wacky minds to riff on. Ryan's out.
Thank you for listening to the RyAngle Podcast. Our music is by Tallac, Tallac. For more by Tallac, visit soundcloud.com/Tallac.